Today we're going to be taking a look at some of your Hughes written assignments. Our objective in this video is by the end of this video, you should be able to evaluate an essay for its literary analysis and writing skills, and you should be able to revise your own essay in order to incorporate some successful elements. Some great news, you guys are going to be revising these written assignments based off of the example that you see here, and it's not going to be due until Friday at midnight to give you some time to work on this. So make sure that you're paying attention so you can find some ideas of what you can steal to put into your own essay. If you remember, our prompt was to examine the ways in which the global issue of your choice is presented through the content and form of one of the poems you have studied. And you're being assessed on two criteria, literary analysis and writing. That's what we're going to be looking at in this presentation today. If you remember literary analysis, you know you're successful if you can examine the literary devices and their effect on the poem and Hughes's collection of poems. If you can examine how Hughes's style connects to a global issue. And in the 9-10 mark band, you will earn that if you're richly detailed, sophisticated, and complex in your analysis. Now for writing, this has to do with your focus and organization. So you'll earn the 9-10 mark band if you are well focused with an insightful thesis statement and topic sentences. All your commentary goes back to proving your overarching idea. You should be excellently organized. So here are some overarching things that we saw in your writing. Some great growth we've seen from the summer assignment and the things they carried till now. One, your thesis and topic sentences are amazing. You guys included techniques and you tied it in with the overarching meaning or the global issue. You also, in your commentary, went beneath the surface so much better than you were doing with your summer assignment. We're really proud of the growth that we've seen. You've had much more confident analysis. Some areas of growth, it feels like global issues are an area that you're still exploring and maybe not feeling as comfortable. So hopefully we'll be able to clarify some of that today. And then this is more of a minor thing, but some of you guys are enjoying practicing your style. And so we're seeing a little bit more wordiness over clarity with your writing. We would much rather have you have clear, strong writing than have something be wordy. But let's go ahead and look in more detail about these global issues. So global issues, I think we get really worked up and overwhelmed about it, but it can be really simple. In Hughes's poems, we see privilege and class working as global issues that we could unpack. Identity is a focus and a feature that you could unpack. How are his techniques revealing and relating to that topic? You could also examine who experiences power and agency and why. Who are the people that get to experience that? And then also, if you wanted to take an approach from the art standpoint, you could consider what does art do for a person's identity or for a community. So some things to avoid. I've noticed that some students are pulling into the body paragraph some outside research that they've done about how this global issue connects to other events in history, which is amazing that you want to include all that, and it definitely shows a passion for your topic and it imbues your written assignment with more meaning. It seems like you really care about it, but it might be more appropriate to include that in your concluding paragraph rather than in your body paragraphs, because otherwise it's going to take away from your opportunity to really investigate the poem itself and what are some of the techniques that Hughes is using in order to create that global issue. So the global issue, if you want to tie it in with the transnational connections, that's amazing, but do that in your conclusion. Otherwise, you're going to start to get off focus and you're not going to have as much space to really delve into those global issues or delve into the literary techniques that you need to. So here's a really great example of a paragraph in a thesis statement from a student. I'm going to read this and we're going to first examine their writing score and then we're going to examine their literary analysis score. So the student wrote, in his poem, America's Young Black Joe, Hughes asserts that societies are unequal due to long-standing systems that continue to prohibit pride and diversity, as well as maintain power and privilege groups through tone, syntax, and symbolism. Right away, this is amazing. It has an effective global issue, which is societies are unequal because of the systems that prohibit pride and diversity. They are tying in some techniques he'll be examining, a tone, syntax, and symbolism. Just after reading his essay, though, this could perhaps be trimmed down and not be so broad as a global issue. After that's one thing that you could always do is go back and look at your global issue and your thesis statement and see, can I pare this down? Is this really what I stick to and argue throughout my entire written assignment, or do I need to narrow it? And that's something that you can examine. The next part, the topic sentence, it says Hughes utilizes tone and parallel structure in order to suggest that change is possible even in oppressive societies. This is a great topic sentence. It talks about the techniques and then it relates to an overarching meaning with oppressive societies. However, I also wonder, can the author rewrite this to have a stronger focus with the thesis? Because here it says asserts that societies are unequal due to long-standing systems. I'm not necessarily understanding what he'll be proving in this paragraph about how tone and parallel structure are like what they have to do with the idea of change in oppressive society. So I want to see a clear connection between those two things, and also a clear connection between this topic sentence and the thesis statement. So let's take a look at the organization of the paragraph overall. Continuing on, it says Hughes discusses how Black people are a large portion of the population, as well as how they are valid Americans. The speaker in the poem is passionate about integration with the preservation of identity, and so exclaims, "I'm America's young Black Joe," to display pride in being a Black American. The concept of being America's brings about the impression that there is a sense of belonging. This message is akin to that conveyed in some of Hughes's other poems, including Hope for Harlem, but it varies from his poems that are similar to the Ballad of the Seven Songs. This is not to say that this poem overlooks the evils of racism, but chooses to view positive alternatives and strive for them. As this contrasts with the issue of discrimination and segregation, the audience is able to see how adversity is not insurmountable, but is deeply impactful. After the speaker explains their singular involvement in America, they describe historically significant Black figures and explain that they are proud before the crowd, that they are America's young Black Joe, which mirrors the previous statement that began with a personal pronoun. In this case, the crowd may signify all of America and the broader world. The pronoun is now more inclusive to the figures that set records in many fields and kept their identity at the forefront. The greatest weapon against the opponent of racism is to rise above and succeed with a sense of worth and maintaining pride and distinctiveness. To the reader, this promotes self-esteem and pride in any identity. Hughes explores the manner in which the systems in place can be circumvented through his use of tone and parallel syntax. So overall, they did a really effective job in this section, tying in the message in this poem, like America's Young Black Joe, with the overarching corpus of Hughes's works. However, I think that it might be more effective if the student were to place this closer to the end and then actually take some time to really unpack the tone of this section. There's a lot of great discussion going on in here. However, we're not getting as much discussion or unpacking of the literary techniques in the work. So in the concluding sentence, this is also effective. It talks about how tone and parallel syntax relates to the manner in which the systems in place can be circumvented. So it ties back in with the thesis and global issue. So taking a look at this rubric, I want you to think about what score would this student earn. I'd say that this is probably on the lower side of the 9-10 mark band. There are definitely some areas in which they could practice their organization, but otherwise it's really well developed. They have insightful ideas and they have a clear understanding of the essential components of an effective essay. Going on to literary analysis, they have really effective literary techniques. It's really important to discuss tone, and then they also notice that parallel structure is happening, but with a significant difference in the change of the pronoun between I'm to there. These techniques aren't just cherry-picked, they're meaningful ones about identity that connect to this global issue about pride and diversity, and perhaps the lack of it. So it definitely shows a clear understanding of how this poem relates to the corpus of Hughes's works, and it connects to the effect on the audience. So those are really effective things that the student does. Some areas that the student could grow would be to take some time to really unpack the tone. So perhaps they could specify in the topic sentence what kind of tone this is. They could also look at how both diction and syntax play a role. So looking at the exclamatory sentence right here and talking about what impact does that have on the meaning and on the tone of this passage. So they have a lot talking about the overarching purpose, but I want to see them a little bit more grounded in this actual poem itself. So looking at the literary analysis rubric, what do you think this student scored? I think that this would also be in the lower end of the 9-10 mark band because they were not just merely listing their devices. The effect is addressed in the context of the passage or novel as a whole. There's no significant or sustained misreadings. They're richly detailed, and they definitely show that they have complex, specific, and well-supported ideas, and it does connect to the global issue. So the student did an awesome job. I hope that you guys will be able to take some time to celebrate what you have done incredibly well in your Hughes's written assignments, but also take some ideas from this video and think about how could you improve your own written assignment. So excited to looking at and viewing these revisions, guys.